I'm happiest in the saddle.
A fellow sportsman.
I am an FBI agent!
Great Scott!
What do you say we cut the chit-chat? A-hole!
Dogs and cats living together. Mass hysteria!
Come with me if you want to live.
Hello, and welcome to Retro Ramble. I'm Charlie McGee.
I'm George McGee.
And this time, George and I are travelling back to 1982 to take a retro ramble on First Blood. Not to be confused with First Blood Part 2 or Part 3. This was the first...
Or even Rambo.
Yeah, or John Rambo.
No, it was just Rambo.
Was it just Rambo, the 2008? Yeah, so this is the 1982, what started it all, First Blood. So George, who brought us this film?
So this is brought to us by Ted Kotcheff.
Why are we doing this film? Because it's not really it's not really a film we can poke fun at, so to say.
No,
it's a good film.
It's a good film, it's got some very serious themes in it. But we just thought it was very fitting because we are just about to see the release of the final installment, or we would assume the final installment of the Rambo franchise, as it is titled Rambo Last Blood.
Yeah, it's not called Last Blood Part 1.
Let's hope not. Change the ending.
eight films later.
Yeah.
Johnny. Okay, so we're going to be back in, well, just the wonderful 80s after taking some time in the 90s. I very much enjoyed watching this film. Done by you, going back.
Can I shock you? I also really enjoyed watching this. I mean, I think both of us haven't watched it for some time. It's not a repeat viewing.
And because it was so serious and actually qualitative, I think we spent a lot more time with the bombastic silliness of Part 2 when we were growing up.
But we'll touch on that later.
Yeah. So there'll be the usual production background from George. We'll then skip through
highlights of the film.
Highlights of the film before a quick coulda, woulda, shoulda, some suspicious spin-offs, and that's basically what you've come to expect. If you're not sure what this podcast is all about, here's George with just a quick reminder on some general housekeeping.
Thank you, Charlie. So yes, this is a light-hearted look back at the films of our youth. So Charlie and I are brothers. We are movie lovers, but we are not movie professionals, so we may get the occasional thing wrong, but we aim to inform as well as entertain. There will be spoilers from the very off because we do go into heavy detail with these films. There will also be more than likely some dodgy impressions as well, and occasionally some fruity language, so if you have little people around, please be careful of that.
This episode is rated explicit. Okay, so let's suit up, live off the land.
Got my bandana on.
Okay, and it's time to go back to First Blood. Enjoy.
John Rambo, a drifter, just passing through their town.
You got someplace I can eat around here?
There's a diner about 30 miles up the highway.
Is there any law against me getting something here?
Yeah, me. I want you to book this gentleman for vagrancy, resisting arrest, carrying a concealed weapon.
They knew he was innocent.
I'm starting to dislike you a lot.
And they didn't give a damn. John Rambo, one man who's been pushed too far. Hunted. Trapped.
There he is! On the cliff!
And forced to fight back.
You don't seem to want to accept the fact that you're dealing with an expert in guerrilla warfare.
Are you telling me that 200 men against your boy is a no-win situation for us?
You send that many, don't forget one thing. A good supply of body bags.
Sylvester Stallone. This time he's fighting for his life. First Blood.
So George, 1982, First Blood, our first encounter with the amazing action hero that is John Rambo. How did we get this film? And I think a good place to start is where were we in Stallone's career? Because this is still quite early on in Sylvester Stallone's career.
Yeah, relatively early on. So this was this is based on a book by
A book, not to be confused with a film,
based on a very popular book written by David Morrell in 1972, and it was.
Have you read this book?
I have not read the book.
Why?
But it's on my to-read list. Actually, because it was so well received, it became quite popular in terms of people were fighting over the film rights, and apparently it took basically 10 years to actually get to the screen due to rewrites, moving from studio, etc. And Stallone even says in his commentary on this, he says it was a cursed project, that it had literally been turned down by every leading man in Hollywood, and
he was like, that's the one for me.
Well, yeah, and he said he was like even having sort of last minute sort of thoughts like, how can I get out of this film? But we'll go back a bit before that. So yeah, Warner's originally had the rights to the novel, and director Ted Kotcheff worked on a draft, but then that draft was shelved because the studio basically said we don't want to do any more Vietnam films, they're too depressing, nobody wants to see them. So it was kicking around, and still the rights belonged to Warner's, but Ted Kotcheff met with Andy Wagner and Mario Kassar, who were building their production company Carolco, is the best way
for you to say.
So they made a lot of our favourite 80s films. I think they bankrolled the Terminator, the first two Terminator films, and I think their actual studio logo has the Rambo music at the start.
That does sound familiar.
So yeah, they were just starting out as a production company, and they said to Kotcheff, we're a small company, we're doing small films, but we wanted to look at some big films. Is there a project you really want to do? And Kotcheff said, well, there's this great script I've worked on, I helped at Warner Brothers, and yeah, but there's no chance you're going to be able to get that away from Warner Brothers. But sure enough, they managed to get it away. And then they said, okay, who do you want for the role? And Kotcheff said, the guy that's perfect for the role is Sylvester Stallone. But interestingly, not many people wanted to cast Sylvester Stallone at the time, because even though he'd had a big hit with Rocky, and Rocky 2 had been out, all the other films he'd been doing, so films that I don't think either of us have seen, so I think it was Paradise Alley, Fist, which is F-I-S-T, Nighthawks, were all flops.
What's Fist about?
I don't want to. I think it's about gangsters. I don't think it's about fisting. So yeah, those films outside of Rocky were flops. So the guys at Carolco were a little bit apprehensive. So Kotcheff had to fight for him. So he showed the script to Stallone, who loved it. It's this classic Hollywood paradox. I love the script, and I'm happy to come on board if I can make a few rewrites.
Nice.
So, and obviously, Stallone was an Oscar winner for writing the script to Rocky. So, it wasn't an unusual request. Obviously, some leading men want to have input, but I suppose he had a bit more bargaining power because of the success of Rocky.
But he would go on that. We've talked about that in some of the other films of Stallone that we've covered. That he likes to kind of have a tight grasp on how things turn out, and they do have a certain aspect to them, but he proved with Rocky that he can write a good story.
Well, and I think that's it, because he's had that element of control from the very start of his career. If we're not counting the porn film he did. But he's had that level of control, and yeah, as we've touched on in previous podcasts with Stallone, that yeah, he is a bit of a control freak.
I think it's also he thinks, well, it's worked before, I'm not going to change it now.
But Kotcheff is in a recent interview, he was really singing Stallone's praises and said the amendments that Stallone made to the script were some of the best parts of the key defining parts of the film. So in the original novel, Rambo kills a lot of people, and in the current script at the time, he was still, I think, killed quite a few National Guards. And Stallone rightfully argued, saying, well, if this guy's killing people, it's going to be hard to win the audience over.
Yeah.
So they stripped that all back, and
so he's just defending himself.
Yeah. And the other thing that was quite vital, they stripped out a lot of Rambo's dialogue. So the sort of slight silent brooding type, where he was quite talkative in earlier drafts of the script. And the most major contribution that defined the franchise was that he changed the ending, but we'll go into that later on.
Great. Okay. So, anything else you want to... Obviously, I noticed when the credits were rolling from a production point of view, it's not only then Jezza Goldsmith on music?
Yes, Jerry Goldsmith. It is a fantastic score, and I think that's what people have mixed thoughts about the Rambo franchise, but the one thing everyone is unanimous with is it's a cracking score.
When it kicks in, it's just, obviously I had, tingles. I was like, oh my God, how many times do I watch Rambo films? Because they obviously keep it for the sequel. And it's just, it's the Rambo theme music. It's tense, it builds, it goes with the action, it's a bit mystical. No, I love it.
As you say, it's it's been used throughout the films, sequels, and the animated spin-off, the short-lived animated spin-off in the 80s. Just for kids. So yeah, in terms of other production stuff, so originally the film came in at over 3.5 hours, and Stallone hated the first cut. He said it made him physically feel ill, and he was scared it would destroy his career, so he tried to buy the film back to destroy it.
Wow.
But what the studio managed, I think it was Orion, managed to...
Nobody wants a war.
Nobody wants... I'll give you a war you wouldn't believe. So yeah, they managed to recut it. So basically, essentially cut it in half, because I think we were saying it's like 93 minutes or something.
Perfect. I think it's a perfect length for a film like this, personally.
And yeah, it really it set the pace for sort of future action scenes in terms of, and it made it a really lean film. The original budget was 11 million. You were saying you thought it felt quite expensive, like quite high budget.
Well, I think we'll get to, but I think definitely what it culminates into for Act 3, I would have thought for the time, for 1982, in terms of what's going down, I was like, yeah, they spent a fair whack on this film.
And I think a lot of it was in the back end. In that was Act 3. There's a lot of explosions,
set pieces.
But yeah,
garnishment.
The original budget was 11 million, but it did end up costing closer to 17 million, and production ran over a little bit, which made tensions between the studio and Ted Kotcheff. But it seemed like there was a lot of stuff that they kind of filmed on the fly. So I suppose we'll jump into the film now. So Act 1, you've got Rambo's a travelling man, and he's smiling.
He's a happy-go-lucky veteran soldier who's returned to the motherland. He's got a smile on his face. Kids are playing.
And I was like, this isn't the Rambo I remember. But he's not smiling for long, is he?
And I'm wondering, does he start grimacing because of the news he's getting, or just the terrible acting of the supporting actress he's having to work with?
She is pretty terrible. But that's the snapping point for him, that he's found out that all of my friends are dead, essentially. And yeah, he's got nothing left. And well, interestingly, a bit of trivia, that all of Rambo's team are named after people in the film's crew. So the makeup artist Michael Westmore and costume designer Tom Bronson. So
wow, they must really have contributed a lot to be such an important part of the cast, because they feature quite predominantly in the script.
Exactly. Then we have Rambo wandering into town.
Such a dreamboat with his flowing locks and those young looks. Like, who is this pretty Anglo-Italian America?
I don't know. I mean, obviously this is post
porn film,
post porn film, but I had shades of flashbacks or shades of Superman, of him walking the lonely roads, in the wilderness. And I suppose it's only a few years later.
Yeah.
But the other sort of 80s stereotype picked on, you've got your small town sheriff, and I'm wondering, has that, it's that you've got that small town sheriff in this, in Gremlins. It was a bit of an 80s stereotype, and I don't know if it's something that Stranger Things has played on.
I think it has. And then if you want to bring it right back to, I'd say, present day, if you look at 3 Billboards, that is what a small town America looks now, and they've got quite a few deputies. Yes, there's a sheriff, but it's still, if we are to believe everything we see at the cinema, which of course we do,
it's all true.
It would suggest that that state, county law, county line, because obviously America is very much broken up into these jurisdictions. Don't give me any of that jurisdiction.
Jurisdiction.
I think that is the way, and it does feature in a lot of films with the state troopers and the county and the sheriff, that is how it's marshaled, to use but a pun.
Ooh.
So we're introduced to the wonderful Brian Dennehy.
Yes.
Who puts in a sterling performance throughout this film. He's a very important part of this film.
Well, he's a brilliant actor, and I sort of couldn't get my head around why he was picking on Rambo, or in Stallone's words, why are you pushing me?
Why are you pushing me?
But they don't really make it clear in the film, but apparently in the original novel, Teasle, Will Teasle, the sheriff, is a veteran of the Korean War, and apparently the Korean War was kind of seen as a bit of a forgotten war, and so I think there's a bit of sort of animosity because the war that Teasle fought in, he never got the recognition, whereas it was all about the sort of the Vietnam War, so that's why he has that chip on his shoulder.
Yeah, and sorry, just a question I forgot to ask earlier. The book is about a Vietnam vet?
Yes.
Right, okay. So, but it took 10 years to be made, which is why it was made in the 80s, but still, it was good for us because we've got probably a better film that we might have done had it wasn't made closer to Vietnam.
Yes,
a bit more distance.
I mean, there were some interesting actors considered, or at least it was pitched to, but...
Getting excited about Coulda, Woulda, Shoulda.
We'll have to hold that back for Coulda, Woulda, Shoulda. But I've got a question for you, Charlie. It's quite an important question. Is First Blood a Christmas movie?
It is at Christmas.
It is at Christmas. There is Christmas decorations in the sheriff's department.
The Christmas lights?
There's snow.
Yeah, I'd say it qualifies.
So, if...
the only thing is there's no Christmas music. There's not as much Christmas music as there is in, say...
Now I have a machine gun. Ho, ho, ho.
There's not enough Christmas references. It's not like Die Hard.
There's not enough Alan Rickman.
It's not clean cut like that, or, Anyway.
But we also have the appearance in the sheriff's department of the one and only David Caruso.
Not taking his sunglasses off.
Not nearly enough.
But still, Wise talking, very confident performance from him.
Very much a rookie, though. He's sort of the more of the sympathetic sort of
he must
type
be in his 20s in that role.
I think so, yeah.
But I mean, he plays that in character. But as I say, it's no surprise that he went on to bigger and greater things, because you could tell he's a competent actor who's comfortable in the role, and he gets quite a few lines. He's probably the most developed of the deputies.
Well, he's the most
conscience.
Yes, because the rest of them are a little bit cardboard cut out.
Gun-toting lunatics.
Yes. No, even Stallone says in his commentary that you could see that Caruso was going to go on to bigger things.
Yeah. But he still took him down as John Rambo.
Still took him down, and apparently Stallone admits that he went a bit method and wouldn't speak to the other actors on set, and was actually quite rough with them in the rehearsals and stuff. So so they were obviously, there was a little bit of animosity towards him, and I think there's the bit where he's in the police station. They start torturing him. They're hosing him down. There's the obligatory Stallone butt shot.
Yeah,
he starts having his Vietnam flashbacks.
I totally forgotten about the flashbacks. I don't know about you, because it's been a while. We should probably, just before we go any further, should we just have a quick chat about First Memories, because we watched this film, we mentioned in the intro, we probably watched First Blood Part 2 a lot more than this film. I can't remember really watching this when we were younger. I got to this in my teens, and it was like, this is a much different, serious film, but I think I've only watched it once or twice before covering on Retro Ramble, whereas I have no idea how many times we've watched First Blood Part 2.
Yes. So, we were chatting about this, and unfortunately the bingo name is coming up. We were introduced this by our neighbours, the Glendinings.
I'm going to blame James Glendinning for this. I'm sure I remember him saying something like, the first one's really boring.
Well, that's it. It's got no exploding bow and arrows in it. So
he was like, no, the second one's much better. So,
and I think that's it. We were given the option of 1 or 2, but 2 had was loads more action, was loads better. And I kind of fell into a mini Rambo sort of obsession, and I did watch First Blood Part 2 repeatedly. I don't think I wasn't interested in 3 because no, that's not as good. And 1 was really boring. And then I think like you, it took me quite a few years to actually watch First Blood and go, it's a different film, and it's a much better film, but obviously it's a lot more serious.
That's looking through the eyes of a mature adult.
Yes, exactly. Whereas as a teenage boy, and probably if not younger, it gave me the First Blood Part 2 gave me all the sort of action, porn, ridiculous one-liners a man could ever need.
And I think James quickly followed up with, he fires a bow now with explosive arrows. I'm in.
And as you and I mentioned at the end of the last podcast, we are at some point we will obviously cover First Blood Part 2. And,
it's coming.
And probably partner it up with Hot Shots Part 2.
It'd be wrong not to.
It would be wrong not to. But I think we have to give that film its some coverage at some point, because that's going to be a lot more lighthearted.
It would be difficult to cover First Blood Part 2 without making a lot of references to Hot Shots. So we'll just get both of those out of the way, since I think that's probably the best way to do it. So I had forgotten, because I'd say I've only seen this film a couple of times a long time ago, I'd totally forgotten about the flashbacks, and that does obviously add a lot more depth and reflectively taking into account the minimal dialogue that John Rambo has in this film, apart from the very end. I think it's good because you are understanding his motivations. You know, without any dialogue, you're starting to see why he's going to potentially and obviously absolutely fly off the handle at some point.
I mean, I don't want to sort of diminish it. Obviously, it's quite a sort of serious point in the film. But what are your thoughts on the flashback Tash, or the flash Tash? He has
got a tash in the flashbacks.
He's got a massive handlebar mustache in the Vietnam flashbacks. That's how we know it's a flashback.
They were very quick, but now you say it, I am seeing a lot of who's that guy from Stranger Things who's being compared to Earl Greg.
Yes, that fella that's the villain in series 3.
Yeah, I've got a real thing for him. I don't know if it's because he's sexy or just a really good actor.
I'm strangely attracted to him as well.
Billy from Stranger Things. It's that sort of Tash, isn't it? It's kind of like what the Mighty Boosh would call a mocha stain.
Yes, it's a very droopy 70s.
Do you think it's a fake? Do you think it's a fake moustache?
Oh, totally. Apparently, there were a lot more Vietnam flashbacks in the long extended cut, but obviously they've been cut for sort of economic exposition.
Right.
So yeah, Rambo flips. He takes out the guards, the sheriff's department, and apparently, he did actually genuinely break when he takes out that guy and then elbows him in the face.
Yeah,
he did actually break the guy's nose.
I like the fact that he goes so cuckoo that even that poor guy who's coming into the station with donuts, he's just like bam.
So yeah, apparently Stallone did all his stunts on the motorbike. In the town part, obviously didn't do them when they're up in the mountains.
I noticed the stunt driver what I couldn't get my head around, because it is a nice bit of misdirection, is it's clearly him in the town, and so It does a very good job of saying I can ride this bike. And I think there's one shot when he goes through the garage, it's not him, because it's just the speed at which he's going. You're like,
too close.
It's too close. It's a really tight angle that he goes through that garage at. But then the rest of it, you can see it's him, and that's a good chase. And you can see it's a good reveal of both the characters of Dennehy and John Rambo.
Yeah, and credit must go to Stallone, because apparently they filmed in the middle of winter in British Columbia, so it was like absolutely freezing, and he's doing all these scenes in a vest, and then obviously later on he gets this old bit of tarp, which is apparently they completely stumbled on by chance. They were shooting up in the mountains, and there was that disused mine they found, and they found this bit of tarp, and he was like, oh well, why didn't I use this? And so they cut it up, and they had to basically, it became precious, this sort of
poncho of justice.
Yeah, and apparently Stallone still has it at home, but
just wears it around the house.
I imagine it's very smelly.
Can we just talk briefly about the location, because it is, I mean, we both skied over in British Columbia, and it is obviously it's amazing to behold, but I mean, in those conditions, it's raining and it just looks bleak and cold, but it's an interesting setting. If anything, if you look at the franchise as a whole, you'd almost imagine, looking back, that the first film would be the one that we see in First Blood Part 2, and then the second would be It's Come Home. Yeah, no, it's actually quite interesting that we get a film like this. I mean, you wouldn't get this sort of film in today's climate. You wouldn't get like a homegrown American guy. I mean, what's his problem? He's charged with vagrancy, and he's an American citizen. He's a soldier. He's getting
he's a goddamn war hero.
But yeah, he's being what's the word I'm looking for? Discriminated against because he's seen as a baby killer. All of that, that what people thought of those who fought in Vietnam straight after it.
Well, yeah, it's as you say, it just amplifies like how how much of a survivalist he is. How the lengths he will go to, and his training and stuff. And yeah, and it's interesting that all the other sequels are set in hot climates.
Yeah, and I do think that there was a very much when he's escaping from the police station and he's taking out all those people, he's like an animal. But to quote Bill Paxton from our last episode, the training kicks in. It is just like that, isn't it? You can just see that he just goes on like beast mode, and then just goes nuts, and like nothing's going to stop him. And he's checking out where the guns are, he's checking out his exit route. recruits.
That's true. Yeah, how he's clocking everything.
Yeah.
But yeah, whilst he doesn't have the bow with the exploding arrows, he does have the very cool knife that has everything: compass, thread, fishing hook, things like that. But apparently that was a real knife, and it prompted a massive boost in knife sales and lots of rip-off copies of that style of knife, of having stuff hidden in the hilt.
What about sales of the M60 machine gun?
Well, they were always big in America.
They've remained static at 85%. Yeah, I think also about, his training, and when you see, I think something we'll touch on later is when he does start showing off his traits, his skills, because as we say in the later films, it's more reactionary, like how's he going to use, because he's kind of attacking. Whereas in this film, it's very much about him defending himself.
Defending and escape. So yeah, he's cornered there. He's on a rock face. Rambo's on a rock face. What a cliffhanger.
Oh my God. I can't believe you went there.
I totally did. And they've released the chopper. You've got the evil, sadistic cop. I think he's called Galt.
Well, I thought it was Art. Is it Galt?
Galt. I think it's just the way they pronounce it. Galt.
But I would have liked to, I think the only thing I would have liked him to have remained in the film, but it was like Galt versus Rock.
Yeah, he is so evil.
Yeah.
And I noticed that he says it a lot, but a lot of the other cops, the most popular line in the film seems to be "son of a bitch." But that whole sequence of Rambo being on the cliff face, the guys like trying to take pot shots at him, and then there's a brilliant shot where Rambo's up against a tree and the helicopter's in the back, and it's like hovering side to side.
I was going to ask you, is that a stunt or is that actually done by an amazing pilot?
No, that's done for real.
Because I wondered, I
was looking for it, seeing if there's any
have they done something like, is that why he's behind the tree?
No, I think
amazing camera work.
I think it's just a great location that they found, that they've obviously got. It's really open for the helicopter, but it looks really claustrophobic because of what's in the foreground.
But you know how a lot of these 80s films, and obviously we're talking about TV shows of the time like the A-Team and stuff, like that looks ridiculous, that would never happen, that's impossible. But this is a kind of brought down to like sort of brass tactics. It's like it's a guy in a helicopter with a rifle and the guy's on the ground, and the stakes seem real, and the guys are shooting the tree, and Johnny Rambo, what does he do? You're going to throw rocks and then takes it out. It's brilliant.
Yeah, and we've missed obviously the one of the key moments in this film, and I remember one of our friends talking about that was the reason why this film was cool, when he does the jump and lands in the tree and rips his arm open.
Yeah, that's insane.
And apparently Stallone filmed the last third of that fall, where he's falling down the branches and he broke a rib doing it. So very dedicated.
Thanks, Sly.
But yeah, I remember one of our friends saying, "Oh yeah, you've got to see Rambo. There's a bit like he cuts his arm open and he does this, like he jumps at least like 200 meters."
As it was when you were a child, everything was times by like whatever.
And he sews up his own arm. It's like it's the sign of a real man.
Yeah, it's well, because there are those moments in these films you're like, I couldn't do that.
I definitely couldn't do that. One of the things that I think is a bit of a goof or a mistake, and I think Stallone even picks up on this in his commentary, is obviously Galt has fallen out the helicopter and landed on the rocks, and Rambo goes up to like frisk him and take his gun, and he takes off his jacket.
Correct.
But then he doesn't do anything with the jacket. He leaves it.
Yes, he does.
What does he do?
You're obviously not paying close attention, brother.
Well, even Stallone goes, I don't know what. We never resolve what happens with the jacket.
Okay, so I'm smarter than both you and Stallone. Okay, this is a good moment for me. No, when the dogs come, which is shortly after.
Oh, is that what he puts on the scarecrow?
Yeah.
Right. Okay.
In your face, Stallone and George.
Yes, that is a good point. But he's sacrificing warmth.
Yeah, that is true. He's going to live off the land.
He is going to live off the land. So then we have I thought this, the cops in the forest, and they're squabbling amongst each other, and a line that crops up in Team America: "The fight's out there, man. It's out there."
I underlined that as well. I was like, "It's out there. You want to fight? It's out there, man."
But I
guess that came up in a lot of war films when soldiers are squabbling together or something.
Yeah. I always thought that part is very horror-esque. It's very darkly lit, and he's picking them off one by one.
Very Predator-esque. Yeah. I mean, obviously this is years before Predator, but you can see, I think, a lot. You could point the finger at Arnie and say, "I'm sorry," but there's a lot of inspiration here when he's like making his own little traps and stuff. So I can do that also.
Definitely.
That's what I kept on thinking.
Yeah, he's got that thing where the guy gets like lanced in the leg.
Oh my God, so cruel. But he's just like wounding all of them.
Yeah, and it's like properly like just a quick sort of stab in the leg and then he runs off.
And we'll get to this when, obviously, I mean, we can talk about it now, but one thing that keeps on cropping up throughout this film, and I love it, and I think they touch on it, I think, in Hot Shots, but we won't go into that now, but it's just when he appears. You know, when there's the shot goes wide and he's in the shot. You know, I think that's how he takes out Caruso. Caruso comes around a tree. And I think I only spotted it from obviously watching it before. But it's like, is that guy lying on the floor? And he comes out of nowhere and it's the proper Green Beret blending into the surroundings.
My favourite moment is in Rambo First Blood Part 2 where the eyes open in the mud.
Yeah.
And he comes out of the mud. But yeah, this is a lot more subtle. But yeah, then we get the line with him face to face with Teasel with the immortal line, I'll give you a war you wouldn't believe.
Yeah, it's brilliant.
Don't push me. Let it go. But then we quickly get to Act 2, and what does Act 2 bring? The arrival of Colonel Troutman.
Oh my God, what a monologue.
Whatever possessed God in heaven to make a man like Rambo?
God didn't make Rambo. I made him.
Who the hell are you?
Sam Troutman. Colonel Samuel Troutman.
Look, we're a little busy this morning, Colonel. What can I do for you?
I've come to get my boy.
Your boy?
I recruited him. I trained him. I commanded him in Vietnam for 3 years. I'd say that makes him mine.
I love the gravitas of Richard Crenna. I mean, yeah, as you say, it's a cracking monologue. I mean, I've had to take some of the monologue here, but it's like, with a man who's the best, with guns, with knives, with his bare hands, been trained to ignore pain, ignore weather, to live with the land.
I know, but he's loving it. He's so proud, and like even Dennehy picks up on that.
Yeah, I mean it's
so over the top, but maybe it's how people in his position would talk.
It's a bit William Shatner-esque, isn't it? But in a good way.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, because he's almost smiling at the end of each sentence, like, yeah, you've got no chance against him.
And yeah, I think Richard Crenna is absolutely brilliant in this, and obviously he's a key part of the Rambo franchise. And I noticed even for the and
the Hot Shots franchise
and Hot Shots Part 2, hats off to him. He does take the piss out of himself in that brilliantly. But I noticed for the trailers for the new Rambo Last Blood, they're still using sound bites from Troutman for the actual trailers.
What has he got? His voice in his head?
Yeah, it's sort of like live off the land, lad.
Yeah, well, it's kind of like that. You know, he's the snake to his mongoose, or the mongoose
to his snake. So yeah, they send in the National Guard, and yeah, you and I were chatting about this earlier.
Well, first it escalates to state troopers, and then obviously they call in the National Guard, the weekend warriors, as Brian Dennehy looks down on them.
Yeah, woefully inept, and you and I both agree this is the part of the film that just doesn't really fit. It's a bit too comic.
It breaks the tone.
Yeah, because it's a bit too slapstick.
Yeah, it could fit in another. It would have been what I think would have worked better. Would have them actually trying to stand up to him. I guess they had to fill out the time somehow between. It would have been interesting to see the real army. You know,
yes.
It would have been, I think that would have worked better.
Him going up against similar, send in other Green Berets.
No, because I think we talked about how this film was much longer and a lot was cut, and there was people that were being killed, and that's been cut as well. And it's funny, I think it kind of, I suppose, looking back at it, it illuminates the fact that there probably was a bit of a rush job, and that I think if they cut this bit out and actually had him up against proper army types or special forces, that would have been a bit better. But then maybe that wouldn't fit with the overall theme that America's army is,
and I suppose pushes it closer to more the cartoonishness of Part 2. Yeah. Whereas it is a bit like it's escalation. It's the small town cops, the state troopers, the and then the National Guard are struggling with it, and that's they bring in Troutman, but sort of to negotiate, I suppose.
But there's still no army. It is still, and I suppose.
But you love it how the National Guard have rocket launchers and stuff.
Get the bazooka, get the RPG. Yeah. And whilst working in the drugstore.
Yeah, it's like, come on, I gotta go back to the drugstore tomorrow. I
think there was also a break in the narration somehow, because he set all of these traps, and you see him doing something with the barrel, and then he goes to the mine, and so it's obviously his plan to get cornered there. But like, what was the whole business with the barrel? Unless that barrel's full of gasoline to make the explosion bigger? It's not really explained.
I don't know if it's just like a trip hazard thing. So when he's hiding out in the cave to hear if somebody's entering the cave.
Maybe. Because I wondered it, because then obviously it very quickly transpires that his trick all along was to lead the troops to that cave, and that was going to be his hiding place, and he was going to find a way out. And even Troutman sees it when he's just up there with a smug look on his face.
But yeah, then obviously he's trapped, or we think he's trapped. So Rambo has to crawl through, and Rambo versus rats.
Yeah, good work to Rat Handler. I saw in the credits there's a boar handler, and there's a dog handler, and a rat handler. Hi, what do you do for a living?
How'd you deal with a rat, Charlie? Just kick its face off.
That's an otter.
Oh, that's an otter, sorry. Just pumped full of rat hormones.
What is nice to see is that Stallone's sound effects, i.e. his grunts or his shock noises, have not changed in 40 years.
Apparently he did get a few bites and scratches from the rats because they freak out. I think was like with water and stuff like that.
Yeah.
But this we are whizzing through it, but I noticed that Jerry Goldsmith's score at times, we gave Alan Silvestri some shtick for it, him always incorporating notes of the Back to the Future score, but I noticed shades of Total Recall in this score. Obviously this came first.
I would need to probably listen to that again. I didn't pick up on that listening to it, but it did sound familiar.
I'll play you some samples later.
Yeah, it did
drop you some samples.
It did sound familiar, but then I think I just got lost, just with my head swaying. It's a long road. What a tune!
Oh no, it's the more sort of dramatic.
Dun, 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 dun.
Yeah.
Dun, 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 dun.
So Act 3, Rambo brings the war to town,
and this is where the budget goes, I think, and it's a great ending because you're like, how is this going to end? Is it going to escalate and it's just going to be troops and is it all going to be a showdown? It's like, no, it's got personal, and you tell.
But as you said, it's all very tactical, like in terms of his strike points, taking out the petrol station, which is takes out all the cars,
distraction.
Then he goes out and takes all the power, and he's going around the city,
creates a diversion in the hunting shop with all the ammunition.
Yeah, so it's it's very, very well done.
So he takes out the power, takes out the garage. Yeah, so and Brian Dennehy is just watching his town burn. And it's got to be like the worst. Like, what did he actually think he was going to achieve? Like, we don't want people like you in this town. Was this why?
Yes, indeed. I mean, great sort of face off. It's very tense. It's it's very, you can see he's, again, it's all very sort of horror-esque. He's stalking him. He's slowly going in for his prey. But then we get
Dennehy's a good
foil.
Yeah, he's a good foil to him, though. I think you think, he's going up to the roof. He's got the jump on him. He's going to be able to see him, and he's showing that he's had some tactical training before he was in Korea.
Korean war hero.
But yeah, it's like nobody can stand up to Johnny.
So we're at the ending, and obviously there's first of all, I've put Rambo's emotional breakdown. Great bit of acting from Sly. Some of his finest, I'd say.
I think before we start talking about that, I'd like to know: was that Stallone's input? Because it is such an amazing performance from him.
It is based on, apparently it's based on true life tales from Vietnam vets about some of the stuff that they endured. I think that is his input, and apparently the studio was a little bit nervous about it being too on the nose, too graphic, and a bit too intense.
No, I think it hammers it home, and I think you really see the bond between him and Troutman. I think the only thing that scene is missing is I would have liked the camera to pan back, even just for a second, to Dennehy's face. To see some acting from Dennehy go... I would have liked the camera to have panned just back to Dennehy, just for a little bit. Just to have seen some sort of reaction to this. But maybe it's better that we didn't, because it's kind of like Rambo breaking down.
Well, the key contribution that Stallone made and Stallone fought for, so in the original novel, Rambo is killed by Troutman. I think it's sort of like a mercy killing.
Wow.
But they were going to, in the original script for the film, Rambo takes Troutman's gun and turns it on himself. So Rambo kills himself.
Wow.
And they actually film that. You can actually find it on YouTube. We will try and include a link. We always say that we do, and we rarely do. But it's on alternate First Blood alternate ending will be on YouTube because it was included on the DVD. And so they filmed it, and Stallone said to Kotcheff, he said, this just doesn't feel right. We've brought the audience on this journey. We've got them on side, and it just feels like a cop out. That it's a real bummer ending. And Kotcheff agreed, so they filmed an alternate version. So they cut that bit short, and then obviously had the panning shot of him being escorted out of the police station, and just showing the wreckage that he'd made, and him obviously going away.
And all those cops, another kind of like Blues Brothers look. Was Blues Brothers 81?
Yes, it was.
It's like America showing we got a lot of cops. State cops, county cops, local town cops.
And I say the guys at Carolco were dead against it. They wanted the suicide ending, which is odd because obviously it's a major factor in ensuring that the fact that Rambo lives ensures all the sequels.
Not only that, I think because it's set up in the film, you've got maybe I don't know if they went back and they retconned it, but you've got Troutman saying, you are the last in this, in
the team.
In this, what does he call it? What team? This strike
outfit. I was Bravo
elite.
Team?
You are the last in this elite special forces
Baker team.
And it would be a shame for you to go down like this, because I think he's saying they're going to kill you, and he's like, so what? Sort of thing. And I think that's why saying that at that point in the film, it would be silly for him just to kill himself at the end. It's better that he hands himself in.
Well, they did test screen the suicide ending, and basically the test cards they got back, everyone pretty much unanimously said it's a great film, terrible ending.
Yeah.
So they ended up going with Stallone's version, which is obviously where he survives to fight another day.
Another few more days, I think. But no, I think it strikes the right balance, because you've got goddamn war hero actually inflicting harm on a local police force. He needs to pay for his crimes, but to kill himself, that's too much. It's going too much in the other direction.
Well, I think that's the sort of the overview of the film.
Which brings us neatly to coulda, woulda, shoulda.
Your scientists were so preoccupied with whether or not they could that they didn't stop to think if they should.
So, George, who else was considered? Well, was anybody considered for John Rambo? I'm guessing no.
When the book rights were going around in the 70s, apparently loads of Hollywood stars were approached. So apparently Steve McQueen was first considered, but then rejected because he would have been too old to be a Vietnam veteran. I think Chris Christopherson was a popular choice because Rambo is in the book is described as long hair, bearded. He does look a bit hippie-ish. But I think there was a lot of sort of key actors involved there, or considered, I should say. However, for the role of Sheriff Teasle, the producers approached Academy Award winners Gene Hackman and Robert Duvall. I imagine Hackman would have nailed it.
Oh my God, that would have been brilliant.
He's almost too good. Apparently, Lee Marvin was also turned the role down. I'm not sure if you know Lee Marvin.
I know the name, I just can't picture his face.
Yeah, he's quite sort of an old craggy guy. He was in Dirty Dozen and Point Blank and things like that.
Okay.
However, Kirk Douglas was cast as Colonel Troutman.
Oh my God.
And was on set for a week. So he was cast, he'd seen the script, but he appeared on location and basically said he just didn't like any of his lines and he wanted to change them all. And Ted Kotcheff, in this interview I read, is brilliant. He does this great anecdote, and apparently Kirk Douglas refers to himself in the third person.
A bit like Donald Trump.
So yeah, he was saying, Kurt doesn't say these lines. Kurt doesn't like these lines. Or he'd want somebody else's line and would say, it's a great line. The sheriff doesn't say it. Kurt Douglas says it.
I'm not insane.
And apparently Douglas felt that Troutman was more like Rambo and wanted to end the film with Troutman driving off wearing a headband with Rambo tied to the front of a car.
I'm not insane.
it was met with some deserved reluctance from Stallone, and Douglas promptly quit. So, you know, we were talking about our love for Richard Crenna. He was basically flown in with like 3 days' notice.
But what a performance he gave in those circumstances.
And I think he was sort of, you know, being fed lines on set. So, yeah, I think he did an amazing performance considering he had very little time to prepare. So, yeah, that is some coulda, woulda, shoulda for you.
Wow. I just can't imagine that film without Crenna in it. I mean, he is spitting out bits of the scenery. If he's not having a brandy and a cigar, then he's dressed in his beret and trench coat looking the bomb.
Well, yeah, it's funny because obviously I think they were initially looking to try and sell it as a star role, as like a sort of you know, as a selling point, having a big actor, an established actor in that role. But yeah, I think, I mean, I can't really think of, I'm sure I've seen Richard Crenna in other stuff, but obviously this is my most memorable of his roles. It's my most memorable.
Love it. Okay, so that was coulda, woulda, shoulda. Unless there's anyone else?
No, that's it.
So that brings us neatly to suspicious spin-offs.
Obviously, there's been a lot of spin-offs to the Rambo saga. So this is the you know, Last Blood is the 5th film in the series, the 4th sequel
franchise.
There was, as we discussed earlier, the animated series.
I need to check that out.
I think it's probably best avoided. And I was reading, apparently there's a Bollywood remake.
I have heard about this, and I think it's very silly, and we're probably going to need to link to this somewhere on the blog.
Well, I think it comes out next year. I think some of it's been filmed, but I don't.
Oh no! But there are Bollywood films that embody a lot of Rambo that are very silly, and then obviously everyone blows up and then they dance. It's wonderful.
Well, why wouldn't you? So I've got 2 potential spin-off ideas.
Okay.
One sensible, one silly.
Okay, why don't you do I've only got one really, and I think, well, I guess maybe we probably agree on this because it was a prequel to this film. Like what seeing him train, how did we get Rambo? How was he made? An origin story.
And I want to see more of Baker team. Yeah, I want to see him and the team. Yeah,
more Troutman.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know if that sort of diminishes the whole theme of First Blood, you know, sort of almost like glorifying the Vietnam experience, but you could make it a harrowing. Obviously there's a lot, and I know there's a lot of Vietnam films out there.
Yeah, I mean, maybe there was too many, but you could be establishing the relationships, and also there's an opportunity to demonstrate and portray a completely different John Rambo, like
exactly, yeah,
to show what the war did to him. Imagine if he was like happy-go-lucky, making a little wisecracking. I'm just trying to think which role that Stallone's done where he's embodied that sort of character, but you know what I mean? Like, like seeing a guy pre-Nam, as it were. So yeah, I think we're probably both in agreement on that's your sensible one. I would like to see maybe more of Dennehy, because I think he's a great actor, and I'd like to see what do they do? What were they doing before Rambo turned up? It's like a weekly cop show, Chips, but with Dennehy at the helm.
Just him punishing lots of people,
punishing anyone.
I don't like you.
Just gets more and more conservative. Old people, right? Yeah, you're dirtying up this town. Get out of my town. Hope Springs.
So yeah, my silly suggestion is kind of a sketch show, and it's called Troutman's Creations, and it basically just lots of situations. So say it's something like Bake Off, and there's this lovely cake, and someone's saying, "Oh, this is delicious. Did you make this, Susie?" And he's like, "Susie didn't make this. I did." And Troutman just appears and he's
in his trench coat,
full military gear, and just breaks down sort of all the things he's like thrown at, like salted caramel layers, lots of delicious sponge. You know, or someone's telling off their toddler, "Where did you learn that language? Did you learn it off Timmy?" Yeah. "Timmy didn't teach him. I did."
Yeah, exactly. And just comes out of nowhere, like
he just pops up.
I like that. That could just be a running sketch. That would work.
I mean, you know, it probably, like all sketch shows, would drop off very quickly. But you know, I think there's legs.
Yeah, or he could just appear in a comedy all on his own. Oh no, he already did.
Yeah, it has kind of been done in Hot Shots Part 2 as well. So yeah, that's it for suspicious spin-offs. Final thoughts?
Final thoughts, rounding up. Yeah, I think as we said at the beginning, both pleasantly surprised to go back and revisit this film. I really enjoyed it, and I was obviously watching this, I think, in 2 sittings, because it's been the holidays, been juggling a lot of stuff, not always having the opportunity to sit down and watch the thing through and through. And I took a break. I think I watched it one night, and then I finished off the night before, and I was thinking about it all the next day, and I was like, wow, that's a good film. And I was really looking forward to going back, because I think I did split it down the middle. I watched the first 45 minutes and then finished up, and I thoroughly enjoyed it. And for so many reasons, the crispness of an 80s film, there's obviously ADR going on, but those sound effects, and you can almost hear the gravel crunch and the leaves crackle. That obviously sound design today has come a long way, something that we probably take for granted, but there was something that was just so beautifully 80s, and the car chases felt like Blues Brothers, and that's why we're doing this podcast. It was great to go back and bask in that sort of film, that sort of era again.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, as we've said, this isn't one that we repeat watch like some of the other Retro Ramble episodes, but I'm really glad we did go back. I mean, I did actually coincidentally watch Rambo, which is the 4th installment recently, as it was on Amazon,
with the terrible CGI blood.
Yes, and it's just a bit sort of distasteful. There's so much gore, and it's just a bit of a nasty film.
Yeah.
And again, there's sort of quiet parts, and it's interesting, seeing how the character has progressed, and obviously it'll be interesting. I'll definitely be going to see Lost Bloods, just to see how especially after seeing this installment, to see how that closure, that circle completes.
Yeah, but it's his baby. He's had a lot of, it's my boy, I trained him, I made him. Yeah, he has had so much to do with this character, like Rocky, but he's a lot older, he's a lot wiser, and he's still churning them out. He's part of the MCU, so this is a man who has had a very long career, so this must be very close to him. So how does he want it to end? And I think we've both seen the trailer kind of, as trailers do today in 2019, they reveal far too much, so I think it's pretty clear what the tropes of this film are going to be.
Yeah, I mean, people are joking, saying it looks a bit Home Alone-esque, with sort of traps and things like tunnels. But yeah, I say I'm slightly disappointed he's cut off the hair and hasn't got a headband, but it's more about the character, I suppose.
No, but you see how he looks at that barber in the police station in First Blood when they're suggesting it cutting his hair. Obviously there's the flashback to the knife, but I think the reaction was, don't you touch my do.
Don't touch my do.
Nobody goes near John Rambo's hair.
And yeah, I probably will go back, because it has been a long time since I've seen First Blood Part 2, just to see how much of a flip from serious, Vietnam, PTSD, drama, action film to let's get silly, exploding arrows.
Because he does have another monologue at the end of First Blood Part 2, but it's nothing on...
Oh, it's not a patch.
It's not a patch on what we've seen, not this performance of Stallone sobbing into Krenner's gorgeous, pristine military outfit. So yeah, I mean, I had a lot of fun. I think we both had a lot of fun. This is what this podcast is about. We will be back next time, probably with 90s,
something Halloweeny, I think.
Something Halloween based, because we are going to be in October, and with everything else that's going on in the world in October 2019, you probably need a nice little diversion with our podcast.
Bit of brevity.
Yeah, exactly. So I've had a lot of fun. Thank you for following us on all of the social medias, on our Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, on our retroramble.blog. George, anything else that have you got a book to plug? Anything else you want to talk about?
I'm not going to do my mandatory leave us a review on iTunes plug.
Yeah, don't. And anyway, it's not called iTunes anymore.
Oh, sorry, Apple Podcasts.
No, it's Apple Music.
There's
please sign
Apple
up to Apple Music. I've got Tim Cook is calling me saying, would you please, someone, there's only 300 users of Apple Music, and they need your support.
I'm not going to do that. However, if you do enjoy listening to us, please share with like-minded people, because word of mouth is really key to us reaching more people and doing more fun stuff.
Okay, so this has been First Blood back in 92. This has been Retro 82. Back when things were cool.
Man, that would have been neat. In my prime, kicked a football over a mountain.
It's been Retro Ramble. I've been Charlie McGee.
I've been George McGee.
And we'll see you next time. Thanks a lot. Bye-bye.